Hello, and welcome to The Pool is Abstract, where we're currently rewatching and dissecting the revived series of Doctor Who, episode by episode. My name is Connor, and with me is the woman I trapped myself in the past for. It's Charlotte.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Feels like it's been ages since we've done one of these.
It has been
Yeah.
a little while.
Yeah, for anyone listening, just for a frame of reference, we're recording this about 2.5 hours after it should have gone live.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna,
sorry.
I'm going to try and get it out tonight. But yeah, last week we had a bit of a filler episode because we were away. So it does feel like it's been a good while since we've done one of these.
Yeah.
But yeah, how you doing?
All right, how are you? You ready for this good episode?
Yeah. I mean, last episode was good.
Yeah, it was, but this is better.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce the episode?
So we're watching The Girl in the Fireplace.
Which is season
2.
episode
3?
4.
4. Oh.
It aired on the 6th of May 2006 and was written by
Stephen Moffat.
your boy.
Yeah.
Your boy.
He's good.
You love them all.
He's good at this.
Yeah, he's good at this until he has to do it more frequently.
I'll leave him
And then
alone.
he has a couple duds in there, but his first few are pretty good.
We all have a couple of duds.
We all have a few duds in us, to be fair.
Yeah.
Obviously, Stevie Moff, last seen on the show during The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, which was, I think it's usually considered by most to be the highlight of Series 1.
Yeah.
There are some people that think this is the highlight of Series 2.
It's up there.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It's normally between this and the finale.
I like Series 2.
Well, some people like the Satan Pit as well, but yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, do you have anything to say about this episode
Nope.
in general, broad speaking terms?
I do not. I'm ready to.
Well, I have one thing.
Oh.
And I just thought, I mean, I could throw this in anywhere, but I thought it just made sense to stick it here. That basically Russell, obviously before Doctor Who, he worked with David Tennant on Casanova.
Yeah.
And when he was doing Casanova, Russell was researching Madame de Pompadour,
Oh.
which is why he decided to. Well, I guess that's where the inception of the idea of putting her in Doctor Who came from in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not groundbreaking, but I just thought it's noteworthy that this wasn't like a spur of the moment decision. This is something that Russell had an idea for, so I'm assuming he gave Stevie Moff the prompt and was like, hey, can you fit her into something? And of course, him being him couldn't just make it a period piece episode, could he? He had to do something weird with it.
Period piece space.
Yeah, period piece.
This episode has everything. It has. If you're into futuristic space stuff, got that.
Yep.
If you're into period piece, got less that, but it has got it.
It does have it, yeah. Do you like having a third wheel companion? It's got it. Do you like the Doctor getting snogged? It's got it.
You like some spicy jealousy?
Do you like stray horses? It's got
I
it.
love it.
Yeah. Do you want to jump straight in?
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Oh.
No, that's okay. We'll do it. So the episode begins. We are in 18th century Versailles. I think that's how you pronounce it. So people are kind of running away in a panic from something in the palace, and this is where we meet Madame de Pompadour, or Renette, as well. I was going to say she's actually called technically, not what it says later. Known to her friends as Renette. She's standing at a fireplace with her lover, the King of France. She tells him that she's waiting for a man who has watched over her whole life. She tells him to go to his wife, which kind of gives us the clue that she's the mistress and not the lady. And yeah, he leaves and she kind of yells into the fireplace and she calls for the Doctor. She says that he promised he was going to show up. The clock on the mantle is broken. This is the night. Come, Doctor, come. That sounded weird. Yeah, and that's a cold open, really.
I think this is probably one of the strongest cold openers. It gives you...
What, in Series 2 or just in the show as a whole?
Well, one of the top in the show.
You think?
Because it gives you so much information and yet doesn't bombard you with it. It gives you just enough, but also leaves you wanting more. Do you mean?
Yeah,
it's like
it's another typical Moffat thing of starting the episode later on and then cutting back to explain how we got there.
I love things like that. I know not a
He
lot
can't
of
just
people
write a
like
story
that.
in a chronological order, can he? He's got to jump back and forth. He's got to mess around.
I'm with him. I like that. Yeah, I
Because when
think
you
it's
think
so
about
good.
it, he does a similar thing. You think of like Silence in the Library. Isn't the cold open with that? It's the little girl talking to Dr. Moon, who seems to
Yeah.
be like her therapist. And then she's like imagining a library. And then the Doctor and Donna just show up seemingly in her imagination. And then you find out that's actually later on. We jump back to see how we got there. He does that a lot.
I think it's so good because it just pulls you in, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
you've got so many questions that he answers.
He does answer them.
He does answer them. But yeah, I really like
He
this.
actually had answers for this mystery. So,
Oh.
yeah. But yeah, that's our cold open. We get our title sequence. I guess just a note for that pre-title sequence is that obviously Sophia Myles, who plays Renette, the dress that she wears, obviously in that cold open and later on during that sequence in the ballroom, it's actually the dress from The Madness of King George that Helen Mirren wore.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the same dress. If you like pull it, if anyone listening to this, if you pull up a clip or just Google Helen Mirren in The Madness of King George, and you can actually see it is the same dress.
Ooh.
So that's kind of noteworthy. I know you like your period piece fashion.
I do. Oh, especially when it's done well.
I'm assuming you've not seen in the Madness of King George.
I have a note. I'm trying to remember. Is King George... And it was... I can't remember which...
Don't question me on history. It's not
Okay.
my strong suit.
George the Third, I think. Because there was 4 King Georges, and one of them was mad, but I can't remember. It was either 3rd or 4th.
Is this the titular Madness
Okay.
of King George?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we cut to 3,000 years later. We're in the 51st century, which again is another favourite of Stephen Moffat. 51st century is where we're told that Captain Jack originates from. The TARDIS lands on what appears to be an abandoned spaceship. The Doctor, Rose and Mickey pop out because obviously Mickey's now part of the crew based on the end of the last episode. Mickey's happy.
Do you know what? I did make a note about this because it surprised me. Because his reaction, when he looks out the window and he goes, "Space, it's so realistic." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and so, oh yeah, he's never been to space before.
Yeah.
He's
He
been
goes,
to
"Oh man, I got a spaceship on my first go."
I love the idea. He's like a little gacha machine and he's like, "Oh, space doctor, great."
Yeah. Again, this is the absolutely nothing fact, but I found it when doing some research and I just thought I'd want to share it with you. Throughout this episode, Mickey's wearing a T-shirt with... that's not the fact. The T-shirt has a picture of an NES controller on it,
Yeah.
and the caption says, "Know your roots."
Yeah.
So this is a limited edition T-shirt that you could only get by subscribing to the official Nintendo magazine, or if you bought a certain like Game Station stores.
Yeah.
But this was actually Noel Clarke's shirt,
Oh.
meaning Noel Clarke, I'm assuming, was subscribed to the official Nintendo magazine at some point to get this T-shirt.
I love the idea, the fact that he persuaded somebody as well to let him wear it. Especially because it's branding. BBC generally don't do that. They cover it up. So
Maybe it's allowed because there is actual no like Nintendo logo on the shirt.
that's fair enough.
I say it's like an NES controller, I think, and it just says "Know your roots" on it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, maybe no one knew.
Yeah.
It just made it past the edit.
I like this. It's, again, something that made me chuckle. They're talking about the smell. It's like a barbecue smell on the space
It smells like
station.
roast dinner.
Yeah, and they're on about people smoking.
Yeah.
And the doctor says there's no smoking pods.
Yeah.
And it just made me laugh to the thought of that's such a thing, smoking pods in space.
What does that do? Does that just blow like the cigarette smoke out into space? Like where would it go?
guess.
Because otherwise you're just sat in a pod in your own smoke.
Yeah, I guess. But then, well, yeah, you'd have to smoke in the pod, then get out the pod, and then blow it out, I guess. It's a lot, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Which is funny to think if this episode was made like 10 years prior, smoking indoors still would have been legal, so that probably wouldn't have been written in.
No.
Yeah, so the doctor says that the ship was damaged, likely from like a meteor storm, and it's kind of in the middle of repairs. So you can see that there's kind of like scrap and bits of junk lying around everywhere. He gets a reading that shows the ship is generating an enormous amount of power, even though it's stationary and it's not moving. And I think Rose mentions that the ship is oddly empty. All the passengers and crew seem to be absent. This is when Rose says maybe they stepped out for a smoke, and the doctor says no, the smoking pods are empty. And they say it smells like somebody's cooking. Yeesh. So after they explore for a little bit, they come across something that surprises the doctor. They find an 18th century fireplace in the middle of the spaceship. I know actually when they first find the fireplace, this room, not the fireplace itself, but the room the fireplace is in, is actually a redressed set from Satellite 5.
Oh.
It's actually, the room with the observation deck. It's that room, which once you know, if you look around, it's, like the room, I think it's the room that Linda gets killed in.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how there's like the doorway that the Daleks are trying to break open, and there's like a set of like rails and whatever. Once you know it, like if you know the set quite well, with that pointed out and you watch this episode, you can kind of see it. And it's disguised very well. Like the set design they're obviously very clever people. But yeah, once I read that and then I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of see it. Like the fireplace is like where the window would have been.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that next time we watch it.
Yeah. But who's on the other side of the fireplace?
Minnie.
It's a child.
It's a child.
What?
I just found it quite funny that she just sticks her head through. It's just like...
What do you think in general? She didn't know he was going to be there. She's just sticking her head in the fire. I have questions about the fire, but we're going to get to that later.
We'll get to that later.
Right, okay. So, there's a little girl in there. She tells the doctor that she's in her bedroom in Paris. The year is 1727, and her name is Renette. Mickey says to the doctor, like, hold on, I thought we were in the 51st century. And the doctor says, well, I did say the ship was generating enough power to punch a hole through the universe. I think we just found it. The doctor calls it a spatio-temporal hyperlink between them and the 51st century and Renette in 1727.
Like how Mick goes, what's that? He's like, I don't know. I just made it up.
Yeah, he says, I made it up. I didn't want to say magic door.
And then Rose calls it a magic door.
Yeah. The doctor says, well, she's definitely speaking French. And Mickey's like, no, she's speaking English. I heard it. And Rose explains that the TARDIS translates things in your head. And Mickey goes, what? Even French? Which I just find funny. French is at the border of Mickey's like comprehension. Yeah. So the doctor kind of flips a switch on the mantle, which kind of rotates the fireplace. It's as if the fireplace is sitting on like a record player or something, and it kind of rotates 180 degrees. Like
a lazy Susan.
So now the doctor is standing in Renette's bedroom. The room now looks dark. The fire's not sort of lit anymore. He walks over to the bed, and Renette's sleeping in it. And I think he wakes her up, and she's very startled because someone's in her room. He says, "Oh, it's okay. It's me, Fireplace Man." And this is when she basically tells him that it's been months since they spoke. So obviously the doctor's a bit surprised.
Yeah, that it's been so long. He says it's due to a loose connection, which I think might answer my question.
Is it time for your question yet?
I guess, because my question is that obviously Renette looks through the fireplace and sees the doctor, and the doctor can see her. Is it due to the loose connection for the fact that they can't do that all the time? I know eventually she moves the fireplace, but how come at other points the doctor can't look through the fireplace and see Rose?
I mean, to be fair, he doesn't really try, because right now he doesn't have any reason to, and when he would later, they go wandering off.
But then I guess you'd have to have a loose connection for time to to go at a different speed in the past than it does on the spaceship.
Well, this is something, because I think I thought this at one point, but the time sort of distortion only works one way. Because the Doctor spends, 10 minutes in Renette's room, and when he goes back, he hasn't been gone like months for Rose and Mickey.
I mean,
so
he has.
That only happens at the end.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not that bad. It's like hours.
Yeah, but then I guess it's like Inception, isn't it?
You can expand on that.
Well, in
I'd say it works like Inception, isn't it? Just leave it there.
It's certain parts of time, so time's, say, set on the spaceship.
Yes.
And obviously, because they're doors to the past is travelling at a different speed.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you were spending, 5 hours in the past,
yeah,
it would only be a couple of minutes.
But that's what I mean. It's not that consistent.
No, we don't.
Because that's what I mean. It's like it's not that consistent because it only seems to happen one way. Again, if it was like in World Enough and Time, with the ships close to the black hole, where it's like time runs slower at one end than the other or whatever, that makes sense. But it's like, it's not consistent here because the fact that the Doctor, how long had it been before he spoke to Renette and turned in the mantle? Like 15 seconds, something like that?
Yeah.
20 seconds? And for her, it'd been months. So the fact that he spends at least 5 minutes in that room means that from Rose and Mickey's perspective, he should have basically just done a 360 on that mantle. Do you know what I mean? He should have just gone in and back out again. But he wasn't. Time seemed to run relative to him. This is really nerdy and really like...
I love it though.
But yeah,
this is my favourite part of Doctor Who.
See, I thought you'd have an issue with this. If this was a Russell T Davies episode, you'd be picking this apart for having plot holes.
I do have an issue with this, but I will forgive it because the rest of the episode is so good. But
right, okay.
But that does bother me. But I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, at this point, obviously the Doctor's a bit shocked. He's checking the fireplace for this loose connection, and he stops. He's kind of like, I can't tell if he's talking to her or talking to himself, because it could be either. But he stops himself and goes, "Okay, that's scary." And she's like, "What, you're scared of a broken clock?" And he's like, "A little bit, yeah, because if the only clock in the room is broken, then what's that?" And you can hear this like tick, 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 tick in the room. Moffat loves that trick. He did it twice in The Empty Child.
Yeah.
He did it with the typewriter and he did it with the tape. He's doing it again here.
He is. Again, another question here, but I'm sure it's fine. Maybe if we looked at it, because I know she explains it later on. But does Renette keep the broken clock on her mantle for her whole life?
Yeah, I think.
And therefore, when the fireplace is recreated on the ship, is it also got the broken clock on it?
I don't know, does it matter?
Because when the Doctor... Because it flips, doesn't it? It doesn't go all the way around.
Oh, I see what you mean. So when he goes back on the ship, it should have a working clock on the other side, you think?
Basically, both sides should have broken clocks. So
Actually, no. It makes sense if one doesn't. It makes sense. It makes more sense if one of them's fixed.
No, because if he's turned with the door to turn into Renette's world...
Yes.
That's that side of the door that was with the broken clock. And therefore...
Regardless, I think it...
I think both sides need to have a broken clock.
I think it makes sense if one of them doesn't. And I'll tell you why. Because if when the Doctor's back on the ship, the clock in Renette's room is working and it's not broken, that's the one she's got. But then, later on when the clockwork androids go through the time window to get them in the end, and she yells into the fireplace, "The clock is broken, you said you would come." So I assume that is the clock is broken on her side because someone's travelled through it, them, and that's how she knows that someone's come through.
But then the clock was broken by the androids so that the double ticking wouldn't be noticed.
Yes.
And therefore, the clock on Renette's side would have to have been broken.
I don't know.
Basically, both sides of the fireplaces have to have a broken clock for it to make sense.
This is Stephen Moffat. It just might not make sense.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I hope it does. I'm going to watch it back and hope there's a broken clock.
Yeah, we'll look into this. We'll add a... No, we won't.
No, we won't.
I was going to say, I'll add an ad to this. No, I won't.
Just know if you watch this episode and it's not, there's a little sad Charlotte out somewhere. Just
Well, we will find out. I'm just not going to make the effort to add it at the end of this. Go check it out yourself. Do some research.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the doctor says, "What's that?" And there's this ticking noise. This, as a horror sequence, is actually done really well because the ticking does sound, it does sound heavier than a clock. It sounds quite dense.
It's like a heartbeat, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And the way the doctor describes it is he says it's too big to be a clock. The resonance isn't right. About 6 foot, about the size of a man.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
It's so creepy. And this is... So, jumping out of the episode talking in general,
Right.
I watched this after work, sat in a Costa
Right.
with headphones in,
Yes.
making notes.
Did you jump?
I literally jumped out of my skin. I knew it was coming. I jumped out of my skin and almost tipped my peach iced tea all down me. Literally in the middle of a Costa, just...
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
How'd you still jump?
I'm terrible. I've got the nerves of a hamster. I know, that's a weird... Hamsters apparently have terrible nerves. But yeah, no, I jumped a mile. I just love the idea of somebody...
I can picture it.
Somebody just watching, just me on my own in Costa. Just jumping a
I love
mile.
the thought of you jumping, then scaring someone else. Yeah.
I love the idea of me jumping and then people walking past and see I'm watching Doctor Who.
Oh, bless her.
No.
Yeah, so anyway, the doctor traces the noise to Renette's bed and he looks underneath where he finds... well, we don't see it initially, but he's looking and he kind of... I can't tell if he's either scanning or if he's trying to use the light from the Sonic just as light, but he points the Sonic under the bed and he turns it on, and the second after he turns it on, he gets attacked and he jumps back, and then when he looks back under the bed, he just sees a pair of shoes standing on the other side, implying someone's now standing up at the edge of the bed.
Oh, this is so effective. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
And then you see his face.
Yeah, he slowly looks up and he realizes it's basically a man in period dress.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would describe this, how they look.
Well, it's
Is there a particular word for that type
aristocratic French.
of... Right. Yeah.
That would make sense.
And they've
because-
got a mask and a wig on, so it could theoretically look like a man with a mask on.
Yeah.
But we're obviously assuming that they are clockwork since they tick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apparently Stephen Moffat just liked the idea of writing a scene with a clockwork robot was found hiding under a bed. He wanted that to kind of evoke that common childhood fear of something being under your bed. And obviously a lot of kids had ticking clocks in their room, and it's one of those noises that it seemingly splits the population 50-50, because some people are like, how do you sleep with that? That noise would drive me up the wall. And then some people say, I just drown it out. I don't even know it's there. I do that. I don't even notice it.
See, I'm on the other bench, which is funny because, again, random fact about me, I have to sleep with noise.
Yeah, don't you just?
Because random YouTube videos.
Charlotte will sleep and put the same YouTube video on that she's watched for the past 3 years on when we go to bed.
I can quote it word for word, and it just within a couple of minutes, if not, no noise or ticking noise, I'm up for hours.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that was just kind of Moffat wanting to invoke this childhood fear.
Yeah.
Which, again, he does all the time. Yeah, the creature tries to attack the doctor, but he... this is when he kind of notices that he grabs Renette by the head and he says, you've been scanning her brain. What do you want with the brain of a child? Yeah, he asks why. The creature, or the robot, I guess, doesn't really answer him until she says something. I can't remember exactly what she says, but she says, what do you want with me, or something like that, and it answers her, but not him. So yeah, the doctor kind of points his Sonic at it, then it pulls out this blade and sort of goes towards him. She says oh, I'm scared, monsieur.
Yeah.
And he says, don't be scared, Renette, it's just a nightmare. Everything has nightmares, even the monsters.
What the monster's
says-
scared of.
What do monsters have nightmares about? And he goes, me!
As
And-
he swings around.
Yeah, and the creatures followed him. He spins the mantelpiece on the fireplace, sorry, and him and the android now spin around, and they're back on the ship. He sort of grabs a fire extinguisher off the wall and sprays it, and it kind of like freezes. This is when I made a note saying, good thing the time distortion only works one way.
I guess.
He removes the mask, and he obviously sees it's like a clockwork android. He very much seems...
I think the clockwork androids, I love the look of them.
the actual, like, the clockwork stuff itself.
I love the fact that they're so, like, steampunk,
Well,
but then
you
futuristic. I
you
love
see
that.
why the Doctor... Like,
Says-
he says they're beautiful.
I've written it down. He's like, I mean this from like the heart, and count them.
Yeah.
He's like, it would be an act of vandalism to dismantle you. Won't stop me though.
Yeah. But that won't stop me. Then it teleports away before the Doctor has time to really do anything. The Doctor warns Rose and Mickey not to go looking for it, and he goes back onto the fireplace and flips it round to go back to Renette. Mickey and Rose, they go looking for it anyway.
I like how Mickey's like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to look for it. And he's like, Doctor said no. And she just looks at him, and he just grabs a gun.
He just smiles, grabs another fire extinguisher, and she goes, now you're getting it. They just run off. He looks so happy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the Doctor goes back to find Renette, and she's not a child no more.
I like how this kind of plays out a little bit, that she doesn't tell him it's me.
Yeah, so he, from his perspective, he sees a young lady.
He assumes, I assume he's either guessing it's somebody else, or like possibly a mother, maybe.
Yeah, well, he says, like,
Saying that, I don't think she's old
I'm
enough
looking
at this
for
point.
a young girl called Renette. I've been away, not sure how long. Is this still her bedroom? And she tells him more or less here. And he seems surprised that she's grown.
The way he looks at her,
He checks her out.
he doesn't just check her. He's literally like bumbling all over his words. He's speechless.
They started dating after this, you know.
Did they?
Tennant and Sophia Miles, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not the Doctor and Renette.
Well, I assume that.
Yeah, no, I think they started dating after this. They got chemistry, tracks.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I like how she's like commending him. She's like, oh, usually what are you called? Imaginary friends
She
stay
says,
for children. I
yeah.
commend you for your persistence.
yeah. An imaginary friend should only exist when one is a child. Yeah, I must commend you for your persistence.
I love what she says as well. She's saying, oh, you haven't aged a day.
Yeah. How rude.
Yeah.
How impolite or
Polite.
something like
Yeah,
that.
how impolite for not aging.
Yeah. She actually touches him. She's like, oh, you seem to be
Real.
flesh and blood.
And then she snogs him.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. And then she leaves to join her mother.
Yeah, I put, good job Rose was on there. I don't think she'd take that very well.
It's weird though, isn't it? 'Cause this, not to jump ahead too much, but throughout this whole episode, Rose is very okay with this, considering how jealous she was of Sarah Jane last episode.
I think it's because, well, she's a little bit jealous of Sarah J, but you know when you're bested, like. I don't think there's much fighting there, really, is it?
Nah, fair. Yeah. Obviously, the Doctor heard the person that was calling for Renette, and he called her Poisson.
Yeah.
So he obviously puts two and two together. Renette Poisson, destined to be Madame de Pompadour, mistress to King Louis XV, and the uncrowned Queen of France. He just goes back to the fireplace, and the guy goes, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm the Doctor, and I just snogged Madame de Pompadour." He just laughs and turns to the fireplace. Yeah, this poor servant man is very confused.
He's probably thinking, damn, I need to sit down. What is going on?
Yeah, I've been eating too much off those lead plates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Doctor comes back and he sees that Mickey and Rose have wandered off. He complains about it. He says No one ever does as they're told.
No.
He says there could be anything on this ship, and then he turns the corner and sees a horse.
I love this. It's so random, but I love it.
The funny thing is, I can't even tell if he's surprised or not.
Oh, he's like, oh, hello.
He seems more like less surprised like what's a horse doing on a ship, and more just like, oh, not what I expected, but all right.
He's like, well, I guess.
Yeah. At this point, we cut to Mickey rolling around. He's doing like commander rolls on the floor, pointing the fire extinguisher like a rifle.
And I've put when the eye comes out from the wall,
the camera,
the lens, and Mickey's face.
Yeah. So there's a security camera on the wall that's kind of like looking around, and in the lens of the camera is like what looks like a human eyeball. And yeah, Mickey just looks at it like, what the hell is that?
And his face is like.
And we get POV shots from the camera, and it's like a really like wide lens, and it looks really weird. Yeah. Yeah, so they find this camera with the human eye in it, and they also find like a panel with a bunch of wires plugged into what looks like a human heart as well. And they seem kind of grossed out, but not as grossed out as I feel like I would be.
Well, I mean, I don't think I'd be that grossed out.
All right.
But no, I put down, Mickey doesn't know what a human heart looks like. He's like, what's that?
Yeah,
and then Rose is like, a human heart.
Well, yeah, Mickey goes, what's that? Plugged into all them wires.
Yeah.
She's like, that's a heart, Mickey. It's a human heart.
She doesn't know that. She don't know it's
She's
human.
taking an educated guess.
Which I
Martha would know.
respect. Well, I guess
She's the doctor. She would know.
I guess, but I'm sure hearts probably look pretty much the same in most species. Well, as in like aliens. I guess
Right.
I guess they would probably, like humanoid aliens, I guess, would probably have similar anatomy.
So anyway, the doctor kind of works out that the horse had wandered in through one of the time windows from history. The doctor finds one that leads to a garden, which is where he works out the horse must have come from here. And he goes through and he sees Renette, a little bit older now, walking with her friends. They're discussing news that the king's mistress is in ill health. Renette turns around, she nearly sees the doctor, but he like hides behind a wall.
I put simp.
Yeah,
The way he's just
smitten,
like,
isn't he?
he's just like got his elbows on the wall and he's like, ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, they carry the conversation on, and they kind of imply that Renette's gonna take her place as mistress.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, how like a character like this, whose purpose, maybe not purpose in the story, but like what they're famous for is for being a mistress. You'd assume them to be like a bad person, or they'd be portrayed as a bad person. But Renette isn't.
It was very common then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they say that later, don't they? Yeah. So Rose and Mickey now bump into the doctor and the horse.
I met a horse.
Yeah, he calls it Arthur.
Oh, that's later on. We don't want to ruin that.
Yeah. So Mickey says, what's a horse doing on a spaceship? And the doctor says, Mickey, what's pre-revolutionary France doing on a spaceship? Get a little perspective.
And his face is like, yeah, fair enough.
He explains that the windows to Renette's life are all over the ship.
Yeah, because they're looking through like a mirror that's...
It's like a one-way mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is where Renette, like, Renette's looking into a mirror, like, checking herself out, adjusting a dress or whatever, and they're, like, on the other side of what looks like a one-way mirror. So they're, like 2 feet away from her, but obviously she can't see them.
He says that she's to be the king's mistress.
They watch her flirt with the king, and the doctor says that Renette doesn't plan to become the queen. The king already has one, but to become his mistress. Rose says, oh, I get it. Camilla.
Do you think
that's our queen now?
Do you think Moffat's been trying to stay away? Like, oh, tea at the palace, and he's like,
2 episodes ago we implied the royals were werewolves. So season 2 is just the episode to. I'll say now we had the coronation as well in. Well, I haven't had it yet, but that's in The Idiot's Lantern. This is a very royalty heavy series, isn't it?
To be fair, it's British.
I guess, but I don't think there's any reference in series 1, is there? Closest you get is in Christmas Invasion when they say that the royals are on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Doctor realizes that this must be the night that Renette and the king first met. He says soon afterwards, Renette became the king's official mistress. It makes me laugh, official mistress, whatever that means. And she gained the title Madame de Pompadour. Rose says, Queen must have loved her. And he says, no, she did. They were quite good friends, actually. France, whole other planet. At this point, though, the Doctor does notice that there's a clockwork droid in the corner of the room that Renette's standing in. So he goes through the window. He does the mantelpiece thing again, where he rotates it, and he freezes it again with the fire extinguisher, which doesn't seem to work for very long. Obviously the droid isn't answering his questions still, so he asks Renette to order the droid to answer his questions. She says something like, you will answer any and all questions put to you. So the Doctor basically says, who are you, what do you want? And it identifies itself as Repair Droid 7, and the ship encountered an ion storm which caused 82% system failure, lacking the necessary parts. The Doctor kind of works out... Well, again, this is a good sequence as well.
I like this, yeah.
Because he says, what happened to the crew? And...
did not have the parts.
Yeah, the droid says, we did not have the parts. And he's like, yeah, I know, I get that, but where's the crew? Where are the mechanics? We did not have the parts. And then he kind of realizes and goes, oh, you didn't have the parts. Oh. So obviously Rose and Mickey are like, what? What's going on? And the Doctor obviously works out that they were programmed to repair the ship in any way they could. They were just never told that the crew weren't on the menu. So,
and then this is where they talk about the smell on the deck.
Yeah, the Doctor says, you mentioned the smell of cooking meats. Or he says that you smell the cooked dinner. And he says, meat and heat, barbecue.
Oh.
Yeah. So the human eye and the camera and the heart plugged in are all obviously organic components that the droids have, I don't know, salvaged, we'll say, from the crew to keep the ship going.
It's interesting, though, because I don't know about you. Maybe this says more about me, but the first time I watched this, I assumed that the spaceship just ran off of parts. It didn't automatically clock they've put the crew in the ship. I mean, I didn't.
Do you mean in the bit when Rose and Mickey find the parts?
Yeah. I thought
you didn't think anything was odd about it. You just thought that's how it should have been.
Yeah, I thought, oh, a bit strange, but all right. Maybe that says more about me.
51st century, you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The droid says that they require a part of Renette for the ship. She says, the robot says, we are the same. And she's not ready yet. Renette doesn't like that.
No.
She says, we are not the same. We are in no way the same. And then she says, go away. Go on, shoo you.
And Doctor's like,
Shoo
no.
off. Yeah, the Doctor goes, no, but obviously it takes that literally as an order and teleports away. Rose and Mickey immediately run off to go chase it. The Doctor says, well, this is when we find out I think he's called the horse Arthur.
Yeah, because the Doctor
we'll
says,
take Arthur.
No, because the Doctor tells Mickey and Rose to go on the other side and go after it.
Yes.
And he's like, take Arthur. And Rose goes, Arthur. He's like, the name for the horse. And she's like, oh, you're not keeping the horse. He's like, I'll let you keep Mickey. Poor Mickey's just like,
Didn't want to be the tin dog, now it's the horse.
The horse.
Yeah. So this is when we get this kind of intimate scene where the Doctor wants to look into Renette's mind. He's hoping to find something that will link her to the droids. So he kind of puts her hands on either side of her head, and he can basically read her thoughts. He says, if there's anything you want to keep private from me, basically just imagine sort of putting it behind a door and close it. And he says ooh, there's a door. Ooh, quite a few popping up. He's like, ooh, you might want to put one there. Renette basically says something along the lines of oh, Doctor, you've had such a lonely childhood. He's obviously surprised. He's like, when did you start calling me Doctor? Because when he came through the mirror, she goes, Fireplace man. But yeah, she says, a door once opened, maybe step through in either direction. And he he seems genuinely baffled. He's like, I didn't even comprehend that could be a thing.
I did put down here, though, how does the Doctor do this?
This is what, as far as I'm aware, which please correct me if I'm wrong, because I usually am, I don't think this is anything established from Classic Who. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, this is like one of those things that we're just supposed to believe, the Doctor can do. It's like in
Maybe it's
is it Smith and Jones? He like expels the radiation that he's gotten in from the MRI machine through his shoe. He just like shakes his leg and he can just expel it into his shoe, and then he bins his shoe, and then that's it. I think it's just one of those things you just say, all right, you can do that.
I'm going to try create something for it.
Right.
I'm going to say he's not reading her mind, he's seeing her time stream.
Right.
So when he's connecting to her timeline to see what she's gone through.
Why?
Because it makes him more Doctor Who.
Right. Okay. I thought you had you had a solid theory here. I didn't.
As a Time Lord, they can manipulate time, and obviously they have the TARDIS. I'm just gonna say he has.
Just feels right.
He has the ability to travel through time, even if it's just through thought.
Here's my question: is these little random things that get used for like an episode and never come up again? Is this something that we're just supposed to believe all Time Lords can do? Or is this something that retrospectively only the Doctor can do because he is the timeless child?
Well, exactly. We don't know. To be probably never expanded on.
Yeah, probably not. Saying that though, that doesn't really make sense because the Doctor knows he can do it, and if the Doctor knew he could do it, I feel like he would know he's the timeless child at this point, but he doesn't know that.
Well, maybe he just assumes others can.
But that's what I mean. If he can, he'd have thought someone he knows back on Gallifrey would have done it at some point, or at least talked about it. Where if it's something that only he can do, no one would have mentioned it. He's just like, I just discovered I can do this thing, but I'm not going to mention it.
Maybe just spend time with humans and people being like, I'm going to read your mind.
Just freak him out a bit.
And he's like, I'll try that. And it's like, it worked.
Yeah, she asks the question, Doctor Who? She says that his name is more than just a secret. And yeah, he's like, how did you know that? She invites the Doctor to dance with her. We all know that Moffat loves to use dancing as a metaphor for something else. Woo. He reminds her that she needs to dance with the king tonight.
And she says there comes a time where every lonely boy must learn how to dance.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's not even. It becomes less subtle every
That's
time.
not subtle.
Every time it's said, like it's somewhat subtle in The Empty Child. Less so each time it's mentioned. This is just full. This is full frontal assault.
Hey, you don't know. She may just mean dance. They go to a party.
Yes, that's where the euphemism comes in. Yeah. So he says that you have to dance with the king tonight, and she says, "I'll make him jealous first." Oh, yeah. So back on the ship.
Oh, I love this. Mickey's stirring shit.
Yeah, Mickey's kind of teasing Rose about how many women the Doctor's got on the go.
Yeah, he's like, first Sarah Jane, now Renette.
Yeah, he says Cleopatra.
Yeah, and she's like, he mentioned her once. He's like, yeah, we called her Cleo. She's like,
Mickey loves. He did this to Rose last episode, didn't he?
I love this so much.
You may want to watch the chips. I love that he's gone from this like sad, pathetic, like, I'll never be good enough for you thing to just like,
screw you, Rose.
He's accepting of his third wheeling here, and he's just
he's going, taste of your own medicine. This is how you made me feel with the Doctor.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna do it back to you.
Yeah,
and I'm so for it.
Yeah. So Rose sees a clockwork droid coming up behind Mickey. She like tries to warn him, but he's like injected with a sedative or something. And like knocks him out. Rose tries to like aim her like fire extinguisher, but another one appears and pulls it down, and she gets sedated as well.
Like, Mickey, and then the two of them left alone for like 2 minutes instantly get kidnapped.
Yes. Rose wakes up and she's like strapped to an operating table. Mickey's in the same boat. He's on the table next to her. He's freaking out. He's
asking where the Doctor is. He said it's been ages.
He's like, we're going to get chopped up. and because the droid's like standing over them with their like knife arms out, and they're kind of threatening to dissect them for parts needed for the ship. And Rose goes, "Oh, you might want to think about that because
Well, he says this is something interesting, which I wonder if there is another reason why. He says that Rose is compatible.
Blonde,
Well, how old is she?
19. Well, she was 19 in Series 1, so 19, 20-ish.
So she's not the right age.
No, but then again, the crew wouldn't have been either.
Yeah, but I
to be
thought
fair,
he was saying compatible brain-wise.
I don't think so. I think it's just I can use parts of you for the ship.
Well, why
So
didn't
again,
they
the
say that to poor Mickey?
Well, maybe they will. They just haven't got there yet. Or maybe they're racist.
I mean, Mickey's been laying on the bed for a while.
They've spent a lot of time in 18th century France.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah. I like she says, you wouldn't want to mess with our designated driver.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, we got a friend. You know the Daleks? Even they're scared of him. They got a name for him. They call him the and then she's kind of like interrupted by...
He's singing My Fair Lady.
Yeah, he's walking in, seemingly drunk. He's got his tie wrapped around his head like a bandana.
Yes.
He's got like a glass of wine in his hand. He's going, I'm going to spread my wings.
I'm gonna dance all night. Oh.
Yeah, he seems a bit drunk.
This
And this one Rose goes, oh, look what the cat dragged in, the oncoming storm. He's like, ooh, you sound just like your mother.
I love this. And also, I just like to say, now that you've watched My Fair Lady, does this give you a little bit more?
Not really.
What do you mean?
The face she just made. Not really. Like, I guess I can now point at the screen and go, I understood that reference, but like...
Yeah, but the whole thing of like, you know, Eliza dances with... Oh, God, what's his name?
The man.
Oh, don't say the man, but yes. And then
I wouldn't have remembered Eliza. Audrey Hepburn.
Eliza Doolittle.
Doolittle.
Yeah.
Gone.
Oh my God, Henry Higgins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Henry Higgins.
Henry Higgins.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. She dances with him, and that's when she realizes she's fallen in love with him.
Right.
You forgot that. How could you?
Yeah. I did.
I forced Connor to watch it because I really like it. I love that movie.
This has to be like a year ago now, right?
I don't know, but still.
Yeah.
Well, we need to watch it again then.
So, the doctor says, like, God, have you met the French? God, they know how to party. He goes, I also might have accidentally invented the banana daiquiri a few centuries early.
Doctor. They didn't even know what a banana was. And this part you probably like is that always take a banana to a party. Bananas are good.
Yeah.
I watched this without you and just thought, nah.
Yeah, I just love that little through line that, like, they're so different, but, like, this is that through line of this is the same man.
Yeah, bananas are good.
Yeah. So the doctor's kind of explaining that, first he insults the one clockwork droid.
You're my
doesn't he?
favourite.
Yeah, you're my favourite, you are. Do you know why? Because you're so thick.
Thickety thick.
Yeah, he says, you're Mr. Thickety Thick Face from Thick Town Thickania. And so's your dad.
I'm hoping the doctor's drunk, but I'm also hoping not.
He's not.
You don't know.
He's not because, we'll get there in a minute, but...
Yeah, but he might actually be.
He explains that the droids are monitoring Renette's milometer, as he puts it. He says when she's 37, which is the same age as the ship, she'll be complete, and they're going to try and steal her brain to replace the broken command circuit of the ship. So her brain's going to be the new CPU, essentially.
Yeah.
This is when... what do they say? One of the droids says something, and he says something like, oh, if you believe that, then you believe this is actually a glass of wine. And then he pulls the mask off and the wig, and he pours the wine all over the gears, and the robot, like, stops. He also flicks a switch, which, like, freezes all the other ones as well. And he says, this isn't wine, it's actually anti-oil. If it moves, it doesn't. Yeah, and then he immediately appears to sober up very quickly.
And he's like, well, they wonder whether they're going to come back on. He's like, no, it's safe and thick, how I like them.
just how I like them. Yeah. So he sort of like deactivates the restraints on the table so Rose and Mickey can get up. The Doctor tries to shut the gateways before the droids can basically damage Renette's timeline any further. However, he can't because one of the droids is still out in the past, which kind of prevents him from doing a shutdown. Then he hears a ding, which the Doctor assumes means the droid has found the right spot in Renette's life for them to attack. And the other droids spring back to life. His favourite, starts spurting the anti-oil out of its like fingertips
Onto his shoes.
Yeah.
Or by his shoes.
The Doctor goes, oh, well, that's clever. Yeah, and then they all teleport away, and they deadlock the system, so the Doctor can't control them. Which begs the question: if they could do that, why wasn't that done from the beginning?
Maybe they didn't think they would need it.
I guess. Yeah. So this is when we cut to Rose warning Renette that the droids are going to return to her sometime after her 37th birthday. So she's basically saying that, Renette says, like, couldn't the Doctor have delivered this news himself? And Rose says, no, unfortunately not. He's busy basically trying to stop them, but I'm giving you the heads up. Essentially.
What I like about this as well is the fact that Rose, she's trying to explain it to Renette.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to basically dumb it down for you. And she puts it like in a dumbed down way, and then Renette instantly understands it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Renette said, I can't remember what she says, but she calls her child.
Yeah.
Which initially I thought, that's a bit weird. But I forgot, Rose is actually like, Rose is like 19, 20 years old. And Renette's meant to be in her like late 20s, early 30s by this point.
Well, no, she'd be 36, because 37, she said within the next year.
Did she say the next year? I thought it was like the next like few years.
No, I think she says within the next year.
By the way, I forget that there's that big an age gap between them.
Yeah.
So when she said something, when she called her child, I was like, oh, it seemed weird at first, but then when I thought about it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense actually.
Yeah.
So Mickey shows up and he tells Rose that the Doctor's found the right time window. Despite Rose tries to stop him, but Renette sort of like pushes past them into the ship. And she can hear her own screams from the future. And again, Rose looks kind of sad, actually, like trying to like... She feels like she should explain it, but at the same time knows she doesn't really have time, and she seems kind of like guilty about the whole thing. But Renette kind of steps back herself, and she decides to take what she calls the slower path.
I like the little speech she makes as well, conversation she has with Rose, saying about, the Doctor always comes with monsters, like they go hand in hand. And she says, I tolerate all the demons to get an angel.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think it's so sweet.
Yeah.
And the way she looks at Rose and eventually says it to her again later, she's like, you understand what I mean? And Rose is like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. No.
And yeah, Rose is obviously trying to comfort her, because obviously she knows that what's going to happen in the future is going to be horrible, but it has to happen.
It's funny, isn't it? Because despite his flaws as a writer, Stephen Moffat is very good at writing these one-off characters. I'm thinking of, obviously, I know he went on a bit longer, but Captain Jack was originally intended to be a one-off. Even Nancy in that story. Obviously, Renette here, Sally Sparrow in Blink. You think of even more recently with, what was the name? In Joy to the World.
Oh, Joy?
No, not Joy, the other one. Annette?
Oh, yeah, the woman working in
Yeah. Was that her name? I can't remember. Either way, like Moffat's really good at these one-off characters. River Song, obviously, she came back, but during Silence of the Library, she was intended to be a one-off. This thing of like, he's really good at writing these characters that appear for a story, have this seemingly self-contained thing, but you still somehow care about them a lot more than certain companions that might come later on.
Yeah, I think he's able to do a lot within the time, but I think he does it again, kind of like the cold opener. He does it in such a way where he gives you enough information about the character, but it gives you space then to assume things for yourself. It doesn't over-explain them.
He's a very efficient storyteller.
I agree, yes.
He gets a lot across in a very short period of time.
I completely agree.
Yeah, no. Good boy, Moff. So Rose and Mickey return to the Doctor, who's discovered that the droids have sealed off the time window, so they can't follow them through. Mickey suggests breaking through, but the Doctor says it would require a truck to smash through because it's combined with hyperplex and plate glass layers. And anyway, if the mirror's broken, it'll destroy the time windows, so they can't get back through. But anyway, since it's the only option, the Doctor pretty much decides he's going to do that anyway. So
And he rides poor Arthur through.
Yeah, so back in France, the droids attack. Renette's at like a party. This is when we cut back to that bit from the cold open where she's calling for the Doctor in the fireplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, the droids kind of like crash the party. Everyone's screaming and panicking. Renette is now complete, apparently, so the droids kind of put her on her knees, and it looks like they're about to cut her head off, maybe.
Well, I like this because I like how everybody's screaming and then she takes charge and she's like, calm down. She's like, we're French.
We are French. We're not known to panic.
Yeah. I like how she's just taking control of the situation, calming things down, and she knows unless the Doctor comes, she's screwed.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to read this as she's confident because she trusts the Doctor will show up, or she's just in control, and even if she's going to die here, she's okay because that's who she is. I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to read that.
I guess I know it's horrible to say, she's had the time. She's gone the slow path.
Yeah.
She knows that is likely her outcome.
True.
She doesn't know. Obviously, she hears her scream. She doesn't know if she's saved. So I guess a year around, she's had time to think about it. She knows they're coming.
Yeah, but she is very much in control and in charge of this situation.
I agree. Yeah.
She says to the clockwork android, she says like, I don't fear you. So that's kind of like a nice moment. But then they all stop because they can hear like a horse whinnying in the background.
Yeah. Well, because just before he jumps through, she says, you're just my, a thing of my nightmares, and you've come to haunt me. And she's like, but that's the thing with nightmares. They'll come. Yours will come for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when we hear the horse whinnying, and it's getting louder, and there's like galloping, and then all of a sudden the massive mirror that they have on the wall, which, why would you ever need a mirror that big?
Well, it's
French.
Have you seen Versailles?
I haven't been there in person.
But have you seen at least photos of it?
No, well, I don't think
My God, there was a reason that there was a revolution. Like, ridiculous. Gorgeous, beautiful, but ridiculous
oversized
money.
mirrors.
I'm on about no expense was spared. They went, the most extravagant thing I can think of, we'll do it. It's beautiful, but yeah. Mirrors are probably the cheapest thing.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, giant mirror on the wall.
Giant mirror.
And the mirror smashes, and the Doctor jumps through on the back of Arthur, the horse.
Oh, Arthur.
Obviously, based on the previous conversation, we worked out that the Doctor's decided that he's going to do this anyway, even though he's now broken the connection, so he can't get back.
I like when he jumps through and then trots and then gives her like a cheeky wink.
Yeah.
And she's like,
but it's not like a seductive wink. It's like a wink, and then he looks so happy.
It's like a big grin wink.
Yeah.
It's not like a seductive wink. It's like a
yeah.
Here I come.
Yeah. Back in the ship, Rose and Mickey realise that obviously if the Doctor's trapped in France, they're also trapped as well because they can't fly the TARDIS. Mickey's like panicking. He's like, what are we going to do? How's he going to get back? And then Rose is just
nothing.
like silently just standing there.
I guess it's got to be quite difficult for her. Again, the thing of like realising you're bested.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, the Doctor, I can't imagine spend much time thinking about that. He just went through.
No, he's a very impulsive guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he didn't think about it. He basically chose Renette over Rose.
Yep. Womp womp.
Bom bom.
Yeah. Last episode. Is that what you do? You just leave us behind? No, not you. Next episode.
Bye.
Yeah, so the doctor's explaining to the droids, basically, you're no longer needed. I've severed the link. You can't get back to the ship. There's no point killing her. Your mission's over, basically. He says, I'm not winding you up.
Tee.
And yeah, they obviously realize he's right. So they basically just turn themselves off. They just cease functioning. They just stop. And they kind of collapse to the floor and they shatter. I did make a note here based on some research. Apparently filming this whole ballroom scene was quite hard for DT because he was allergic to horses.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Moffat was like, I'm going to put a horse in there and he's actually going to be used.
Yeah. But then we get a little flash forward and the Doctor and Renette are talking and the Doctor actually seems quite accepting of taking the slower path. He says like, oh, sorry about the window, by the way. I'll pay for the damage. And he's like, oh, that's a thought. I'm going to need money. He's like,
yeah.
How'd you get money?
Where do you get money? Isn't that the question that we're all wondering?
Yeah, I don't have the answer yet.
Me neither.
Yeah. So at this point, they're kind of sipping wine, real wine this time, and they're sort of looking through one of the palace windows, looking at the stars. Yeah, he's obviously realised he's not going anywhere, but Renette suggests that there might be a way for him to get back. So she takes him to a bedroom with a fireplace, the same fireplace from when they first met, from her childhood bedroom. She said she had it moved and basically set up in a room sort of like for like. I do know that the two bedrooms, as in her childhood one and this one, are actually just redressed versions of the same set. Because they were obviously both built adjacent to the spaceship set because they had to rotate to do that. So instead of like building another set and moving the fireplace, they just redressed the same set.
That's fair enough.
That's kind of cool. But yeah, she said she had it moved to Versailles. And the Doctor says, well, he seems to get quite excited and he's kind of like putting his ear to the fireplace and knocking it with his knuckles. And he says, if I'm lucky, because the fireplace was moved, the window was offline when the link broke.
Yeah.
So there might still be a connection, which he says there is. So the Doctor uses the sonic to kind of turn it on. He reactivates the link and he rotates the fireplace as she says.
I love this. He literally turns it and he's got such a happy face and he's like, oh, wish me luck. And she just turns to him deadpan and says, no. It's like, oh, it's so heartbreaking.
Well, I think because his smile just disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like rotating around. He's got a big grin. She says no and his face just drops.
Well, that's the thing, because, like, you know, he obviously... Do you mean it's... You can tell he's done it, but within... He doesn't have that much regret, but you can kind of sense some. But the fact he's like, you know, oh yeah, I'm stuck here, going the long way on the slow path, a long way round, and he's like, oh, won't do that again.
Well, I don't see it as regret. I just see it as because he's got this mindset.
Realization,
because he's got this mindset of always moving on. Do you know what I mean? It comes into play a lot throughout the show that he's always running from the consequences of his actions, and he never stays in one place too long. I don't think it's necessarily a regret and like he wishes he shouldn't have done it. I think it's just that it's just so in his nature, it's his default to go back to the TARDIS and fly away again, that he didn't even think about anything else. And then the thought of her just basically saying, no, I'm not going to wish you luck, I want you to stay. I think the reason his face drops is not because he's like, oh, you don't want the best for me. I think it's more of, it's the first time he's actually had to make a choice, really.
Yeah.
He's had to confront his kind of contrasting feelings and come to a decision as to what he's going to do. So which is why he looks back through the fireplace to see her, and he says to go to the window, pack a bag and pick a star, any star. He says, give me 2 minutes, and he goes off to find Rose and Mickey. He finds them, and he rushes them into the TARDIS, and he turns away to go get Renette. He rides the fireplace back around again, and she's not there. The room is dark, and the only person in the room now is the king. He's looking a little bit older.
I really like this scene because
This is the best scene.
It gives
in
you
the
hope
episode.
until it just completely and utterly takes you away. Sorry, my stomach is really.
Was that your stomach?
That's my stomach.
Oh my god! I thought that was a bike outside.
That's my stomach.
Good god!
I told you I was hungry.
Jesus! I've got these like sound cancelling headphones on, and I could hear it through them. I thought it was something outside.
No, I told you I was hungry.
Blimey. Anyway, back to this emotional scene.
Okay, back to, yeah, I like how, you go back and you're like, oh no, and then you're like, oh, but it's okay, she's leaving, and he's like, Versailles for the last time, oh no, and then you see the carriage, he's like, oh, she died, oh no. It's just such an emotional roller coaster.
I think this through to the end is the strongest part of the episode, because this is
so strong. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it turns out that the 2 minutes the Doctor was gone had been years
Yeah.
for Renette. The king says, "You just missed her. She'll be in Paris by 6." He says that she always hoped to have seen the Doctor again, and he gives him a letter from her. The king and the Doctor basically look out the window and they watch a hearse take her away for what the king says is the last time. We obviously find out she's died, and the Doctor he doesn't deal with grief well, does he?
No. Well, this is the 2 points I've made, which is interesting. So, in that 2 minutes, it's been 6 years at that time, and he said that eventually that it's illness that had taken her.
Yes.
But I also put down it's Ten's first loss, as far as I'm aware. I mean, it's...
Yeah. In terms of, like, death of a loved one, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know 9 lost a couple of people.
Yeah.
But I think this was, I think
But
he
again,
felt
it's
a
like,
little bit
you could
more
argue,
about
like,
her.
9 lost Linda,
And
but it's like, I don't know.
Gwyneth.
Yeah, but again, 10's relationship with Renette seems different.
Yeah, well, because this thing, it's not like... Whereas, like, Linda and Gwyneth, they died to, and the Doctor couldn't do something about it. This is like, the Doctor went back for a little bit too long.
Yeah,
and he missed...
He probably feels like...
Life passed, and that's the issue.
Yeah, it's not necessarily his fault that she died, but he probably feels responsible that he didn't get to do more with her life.
Yeah.
He wasn't quick enough.
And
Do you know what I mean?
I think it's interesting because I think it's the last episode. The Doctor mentions, I can't remember who he's talking to, but he says about how, I think it's Rose, when he says about how he leaves companions behind because he hates to watch them grow old.
He says, you get old, you wither and you die. I keep going on.
And he's like, that's why he kind of, I guess, drops them off at their peak.
Yeah.
But he wants to spend more time with her, but...
Yeah.
Him being there is locking him out of these times.
And now this specific moment is probably my favourite part of the episode, and it's such a subtle exchange. But it's after the King's handed the letter to the Doctor, he asks what it says. And the Doctor just slips it into his pocket and walks away. And the King kind of looks back at the window and he says, quite right. I don't know why. There's something about that exchange I love.
I love
There's that
it
thing
as well.
there's an obvious curiosity. If the King wanted to know badly enough, he could have read it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Before giving it to the Doctor, but he gave it to him, and he there is obviously that curiosity, but he respects the boundaries, and
that's what, again, I love about...
He's going through his own grief, do you know what I mean? And it's that thing of, I get it.
It's, again, it's so much said in such a small amount of...
Like 2 words, yeah.
And, do you mean, it shows you, which is very much of the time, do you mean, he had so much respect for her. He didn't just see her as, like, a mistress.
Yeah.
He truly cared about her enough to keep this letter, and then obviously when the Doctor returned, to give it to him and respect that it was for him and not for the King.
It would have
to
been
read.
easy to have just been jealous and saw the Doctor as a rival, but no, he even though they never clearly had an interaction between the two of them properly, he still had a respect for the Doctor. And yeah, just that, what does it say? The Doctor pockets it, walks away. Quite right. And then they don't exchange a word, and the Doctor walks away, and he just watches her leave out the window.
Yeah.
I love that moment. I think it's great.
I think it's very much of the Doctor as well that he doesn't stay.
Yeah, like I say, his default is to run away.
That's the thing, because people don't, people would think, oh God, I'll stay. I'll, go to the funeral, or I'll spend some time in the place where she was.
It's that thing, isn't it? It makes it real then.
Yeah.
You have to own up to it, where if he can just run away, he can just forget about it.
And
he can just go on to the next thing.
I like the fact that, again, the Doctor is so closed off with his emotions in general. I like the fact he doesn't read the letter until he's on his own.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why he doesn't read it in front of the king.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he knows it's going to affect him so much. He wants to be alone when he reads that.
Sometimes you just need to be in your own sort of protective bubble.
You can be vulnerable then.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep up a facade, or you don't have to justify things to anyone. And yeah, like I said, this is jumping ahead quite a bit, but this is why I think it was very important for the 14th Doctor to do what he did after the whole, again, this is jumping ahead so far. But after the whole Bud generation thing, and 15 goes off, but 14 stays with Donna, and they are, he, as 15 says, doing therapy out of order, and he's taking some time away, and he's not going to run away anymore. He's going to spend his life with these people. And he clearly needed that, because he spent, we think of how long it'd been for us. We think, oh yeah, he spent the last, 15, 20 years or whatever, running away. But no, again, for the Doctor, this has been 2,500, 3,000 years. Do you know what I mean? Of running away.
And I think it's not just that. I think the Doctor in general, it's, if you keep running away and not seeing the human lives till the end, you don't have the respect for them. You don't realise as much of how much of a short time it is.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of moments where the Doctor finally has a reset. Do you know what I mean? There's a thing at the end of series 4 where Davros asks him to, he says, how many have died in your name? And he has this little flashback sequence of thinking all the people who have died. And it clearly affects him. But then once he regenerates into Matt Smith, I don't know, Matt Smith seems much more, maybe not accepting, but he's, I don't know, he seems to handle his emotions a little bit better than 10 does. He's still not perfect, because there's still that whole thing that River says, the Doctor hates goodbyes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then you think of 12, he wouldn't let Clara die.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And he basically ripped his entire homeworld apart because he felt, as in his words, he had a duty of care. So he kind of has these soft little reset moments where he has to confront stuff, and he gets a little bit better, but then he falls back into it again, where it's not until 14 finally gets to just kind of semi-retire for a bit that he finally gets time to just process and take all this in. And you think, if you think of when you've lost a loved one and how it sometimes takes you weeks, months, years to get over it, or to process and deal with that and grieve. Imagine if you've kept things bottled up for 3,000 years and you've got to do all that processing in one go.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's probably the first time that he contemplated the fact that he left his granddaughter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Back, 2,500 years prior. Yeah. So the fact that, like I say, I know that is jumping ahead quite a bit, but again, this is just another brick in that wall.
Yeah. Boo.
Yeah, just another kind of, I don't know, another footprint on the beach.
But
ready to get washed away by the tide. Another handprint on the railing. Why are you shaking your head at me?
I think it's interesting as well what it adds to Ten's character. Because
in which way?
Well, how what's the word? How he just jumps to things. What spontaneous or careless he is. He doesn't think about things. He doesn't care about things. It's in these moments I could be wrong. Impulsive, yes.
Yeah.
When he jumps back with Renette and he's with her, for me, I got the sense that he's kind of like, oh God, I'm having to slow down. It doesn't seem at any point that he's going, oh God, I've left Rose.
Yeah.
And I've left Mickey on that spaceship.
Yeah.
Do you mean, like, that's it?
It's very much like the 10th Doctor struggles to comprehend things that aren't directly in front of him.
Yeah. And I think, again, very selfish, but I think...
He struggles to see the big picture sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's why he's so eager to jump into things, because he doesn't think about it.
Yeah.
And obviously this...
But it's really interesting, for a character like the Doctor that we always consider to be the ultimate good guy. And again, it's not like, I know we make jokes, the 10th Doctor's a dick, but like, he is still a good man, do you know what I mean? The Doctor is not like an evil person at this point, but it is interesting to see what is probably, I know some people would argue maybe the 6th or the 7th Doctor, but what could arguably be the most flawed incarnation of this character.
I think it's definitely 10. I haven't seen the others.
I mean, there is a moment where the 6th Doctor literally like pushes someone into an acid pit and then says something along the lines of, forgive me if I don't join you, but... So we'll, you know.
That feels very Bond.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
But, no, I don't know. I think 10... I think 10 is...
10's just very narrow-minded. He always sees the small picture, and he's, like I say, impulsive. I think that's a good word for him.
But yeah, I think it's interesting.
But it doesn't make you like him less. Do you know what I mean? In terms of I wouldn't want to be friends with this Doctor as much as I would with like 12.
Yeah.
But as a protagonist, I'm not like, oh, I can't wait for the David Tennant era to be over. Do you know what I mean? Well, you are. But that's not because of Tennant.
No, oh no, God, Tennant's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's so good. He plays, again, these nuances so well.
He's very good, isn't he?
He is very good.
The nation's favourite.
I love him. I love him in I haven't seen him in that much, sadly. I should watch him in more. But whatever I've watched him in, I've loved him in.
Yeah.
But I just don't like the character he's playing. It's not what he's doing, it's the character himself. I'm like, what a douche.
Yeah. But yeah, back in the TARDIS, the Doctor's trying to act all kind of like nonchalant.
He's so terrible at it.
Yeah, he's like trying to pilot the TARDIS. Rose asks why Renette was singled out, why they wanted her. And he kind of just shrugs it off as the ship's computer getting damaged, and he got confused. But
I love the fact that they never find out. I love the fact that the Doctor doesn't know. It's just, and then it's just that little clip at the end.
It's funny because it would have been easy to not let us know either.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to just leave it as an ambiguous thing of like, hey, some things in life just don't get explained.
Yeah.
And it's like, it kind of is for them, but we get that nice little bit of narrative closure.
I love that.
But yeah, Rose obviously senses that he's in pain.
Yeah.
She asks him if he's all right, and he smiles and says, I'm always all right. And then he immediately breaks eye contact again.
Yeah.
And she looks like she just doesn't know what to do with herself.
So she's like, come on, Mickey.
No, it's the other way around. That's the thing. Mickey tells Rose. He says, come on, Rose, you haven't shown me around the place yet. And it's Mickey realising that the Doctor needs some space.
Yeah.
And he pulls Rose away. Again, just another kind of, I don't know, another step in their relationship, even though it's not a direct kind of interaction between the two. The fact that Mickey is able, when you think of how much Mickey hated the Doctor in Aliens of London, and then you look at them now, and he clearly realizes that this is a man in pain, and he just needs space.
Because they don't know why.
No, not really. No.
But that's what I think is so interesting. They don't know that he's gone back and she's died.
And again, I do wonder how much of the difference between the way Mickey and Rose react to that. I don't know whether that's because Rose feels like she's got more of an investment because they're really close and Mickey's a bit more removed, or how much of that is a commentary on maybe the way that men tend to bottle their emotions.
Maybe. And
Mickey, obviously being a bloke himself, understands that that's probably what's going on. And if he were in that situation, he would just want space.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I saw it as a mixture of that and, again, maybe he's reaching a little bit, but maybe Mickey understands that the Doctor obviously cared deeply about Renette.
Yeah.
And that he hasn't brought her with him So maybe he's kind of...
He's put two and two together, you think?
He's like, oh, he's mourning the loss. Not necessarily the death, but just the loss of her.
Yeah.
And
the
maybe
fact that they won't have any more time together.
And maybe he understands that from not knowing with Rose.
Yeah.
And kind of being like, I've been there.
It's interesting how many layers there are to this, because it could be any of these, but the fact that you can just kind of have this conversation and think it could be any one of them, and none of them is necessarily the right one.
Answer. And we don't get an answer, but it's interesting to kind of talk
But again,
about.
it makes all the characters, even though obviously you think of this as a very Doctor-centric episode, but it's interesting the little bits of character development it does for Mickey and Rose. They're barely in this, do you know what I mean? But yeah, the little building blocks of their relationship that's set up here as passengers in this story is really interesting.
Yeah.
So now that Mickey leads Rose away and the Doctor's on his own in the console room, he finally opens the letter. And Renette essentially says that she loves the Doctor but fears that she won't see him again as her body weakens. Still, she holds on to hope. She pleads for him to hurry back to her, and she finishes, "Godspeed, my lonely angel." Aww. And he puts the letter back in his pocket, and he turns to the console, and he deactivates the fireplace, basically breaking the last link between the ship and France. And then the light in the fireplace goes out, and the TARDIS dematerializes, and we can see after the TARDIS dematerializes, right behind it was a picture of Renette up on the wall, and the camera pulls out, and we're watching the ship kind of float away lifelessly in space. And as the camera pulls out, we can see that the name of the ship is written on the side. It's the SS Madame de Pompadour, which obviously explains why her. Which, again, like you said, I love that as, like, for us, that's our narrative closure. That makes sense to us. And it's a satisfying way to wrap it up, I think. But yeah, because the characters never found out, it does leave them with that thing of just sometimes there are no answers.
And I love the fact that it's not...
But it's not...
It is giving us the answer, but it's not explaining it to us.
Yeah, again, it lets you connect the dots.
Yeah.
And again, it would have been easy to leave us on the same thing as well. And you could argue, we could have ended on the same notes and thought, life doesn't always have answers. But again...
I would have hated that.
It's easy to just... if that was the ending, it'd be easy to just say, oh, well, there was no answer.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people do. But it goes to show there was an answer. It's just... Yeah, I think it was the right choice.
Simple answer as well.
It's the right choice that we get, because we don't need more than that.
No,
we don't need the history of why the ship is called the SS Madame de Pompadour. We don't need anything more than that.
No,
that's enough.
It's like okay, I can understand why they went back for her for that age.
You think of how a machine would think things through, and ship's 37 years old, named after her. Sure, and that's all you need. Yeah. But that's it. That's the episode. How are we feeling?
I love this episode. I think
good,
it's
isn't it?
so good, yeah. Again, like we've mentioned all the way through, I think it does subtlety so well. It gives you so much depth into the characters. We don't really spend that much time with Renette.
I guess not.
But yeah, I feel like I know her very well. I feel like, she thinks things through. She's very wise, obviously very charismatic, and respected by people. And I just love her character. I really like her and the Doctor's interactions.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that her and Rose, even though they only have one really proper interaction.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's a mature...
spite-filled.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think, especially coming off a school reunion, it would have been a bit tiresome if they were having this kind of catty rivalry. But they have a very mature interaction.
But that's what, again, I hate to say it because I love Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
But I think, again, because Sarah Jane was very catty towards Rose, I think it was reciprocal.
But yeah, because technically Sarah Jane started that.
Yeah. Whereas this, I think, again, it's, like I said, it's kind of joking, but also kind of true. I think Rose knows that the Doctor feels a certain way, but I think she's also that kind of thing of Renette is just treating her with respect and is mature, and even if she started Renette probably wouldn't bite.
No.
She'd
Yeah.
just be like, okay.
Yeah. Who are you, child? Get out of my room.
Child.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good one. Would you say, I know it's kind of early doors yet because we haven't finished our rewatch of Series 2, but from memory, would you say this is your favourite in the series?
It's definitely in the top 3, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Story, that is.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. Because I love the next story.
The two-parter. Mm-hmm. Cybermen two-parter.
I love the two-parter. So, again,
you like this more than School Reunion?
Definitely. Definitely. I just think this is my favourite part and favourite thing about Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, you like your period piece rompy ones, and it kind of is that, but at the same time, it's also a Stephen Moffat sci-fi timey-wimey thing at the same time.
It's just everything
it's
I love.
Blink and like Unquiet Dead at the same time.
It is, yeah, and I just love it so much.
Yeah, it's got a bit of everything. It's got a bit of romance, it's got a bit of spookiness, it's got funny bits, it's got serious bits, it's got character moments, it's got action, it's got everything. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, good job, Moff.
Big thumbs
You
up.
did it again. Do you know what time it is? It's trivia time, baby.
Oh, no.
Do you want some working tiles for the girl in the fireplace?
Yes, please.
I got 3.
I hope they're good.
The first one is pretty standard from what I've seen from the historicals. Madame de Pompadour.
Of course, I was. If that wasn't on there, I would have been disappointed.
Yeah. This one makes me laugh. Working title number 2, Every Tick of My Heart.
That is so terrible.
And
oh
number
my
3
god, I'm so glad that isn't.
is Renette and the Lonely Angel.
I mean, that's not too bad, but I think Girl in the Fireplace is
I agree.
by far the best.
Yes, Every Tick of My Heart.
That is so bad.
Yeah. Sophia Myles didn't even have to audition for this role. She was offered it.
Fair.
So I do wonder whether Moffat wrote this with her in mind or whether Russell just immediately had someone in mind. I don't know. But apparently she was offered the role and she took it. So
I would say, did they know her from something? Did they?
I don't know. I don't think she was in anything like Russell did prior.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he'd seen her in something.
Yeah. I didn't know whether they'd worked together
I
before.
don't think so. I don't think she was in like Casanova or Bob and Rose or anything like that.
Yeah.
Renette is the first non-companion character to kiss the Doctor on screen.
Oh.
Take that with what you will.
How many companion characters like kiss the Doctor?
Well, before this,
Yeah. Obviously
it
Rose.
would be Rose, Jack, and Grace from the TV movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Technically, I don't think it ever happened in the classic series for reasons I think we discussed previously. But yeah, and this is actually quite a. I don't know what this says about me, but I find this a fun, little interesting factoid. Every human guest actor in this episode, with the exception of Child Renette, were all born in the same year, 1980.
Were they?
Yeah, except for young Renette, every guest actor in this, including, I believe, the guy in the Clockwork Android thing, was born in 1980.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Was this? I'm assuming this wasn't done on purpose. But
I don't think so. I think it's just coincidence. But yeah, Sophia Myles, obviously the woman who plays her friend when they're out in the garden, the guy who plays the king. Yeah, they're all born in 1980. So that's kind of weird.
That is weird.
But yeah, and that's all I've got. Do you have anything else you want to say additionally about the girl in the fireplace to wrap up?
No, I just love this episode. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's very good.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys thought. We just want to thank you all for listening to us ramble incessantly for, what is this, like episode 17, 18? I don't even know what episode we're on anymore, but...
Thank you for listening to us ramble. Sorry about the rumbles. If you heard them, there's been a couple more since.
Yeah. Yeah, if you found us early days in the first couple episodes and you're still listening,
thank you.
that's awesome. So thank you. If you just found us today and this is your first one, consider subscribing.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. You can listen to us go completely off topic some more. You can check us out wherever you're listening to this. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, or you can find us over on Apple Podcasts, whatever your platform of choice is. But yeah, you can leave a like if you're on YouTube, subscribe, follow, whatever the done thing on your platform of choice is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you all. Thank you very much for listening. And I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode, where we're going to encounter a parallel Earth. But until then, stay safe. Stay away from...
Clocks.
Stay away from clocks.
Stay away from mechanical clocks.
Clockwork robots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Bye.
And goodbye.